Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Humanizing HR, Introducing Hybrid EX in the Now of Work. I have a few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you have any questions or technical concerns, please use the Q&A module on your screen. You can resize and minimize the different modules on your screen by using the options in the top right corner of each module. This event is being recorded and can be watched later on demand using the same link. Attendees will receive the recording of today's event. Look for that email within 24 hours post-event. We encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A module throughout the event for our speakers to address. You can also use the reaction module in the menu at the bottom to relay items you may like or want to express an emotion to. And now I will pass the stage to Bonnie Tishman, moderator for this event.
Thank you so much, Amberly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session. We have some great speakers today. I'm so excited to share some incredible content and some new thought leadership with you. Before we get started, my name again is Bonnie Tishman. I lead marketing for Conduent Human Capital Solutions, and just want to give you a little background of why we're here today to set the stage. So a couple of years back, I actually led marketing for Conduent's CXM, or what we call Customer Experience Management Solutions. And I found that things were just changing as it related to when customers called in, what their expectations were. So we did a study. We did a study to see, did the market change? Were expectations different since COVID? I know we're all tired of hearing COVID, but it was a landmark event in our history. And what we found is, yes, things did change. Number one, customers really expected you to know them. They expected all of their interactions to be incredibly personalized. And what we found also is they wanted to talk to people. They wanted to talk to people even if it was in a chat, if it was in an email, but they expected to not just be a one and done any longer, which in our industry, it was always just get the answer, get it quick. They wanted it to be conversational. People were, they were quarantined. They wanted to have better relationships. We found self-service was an incredible bust. People were not able to self-serve, and therefore they did spend a lot more time trying to find answers. They wanted to be able to interact in their channel of choice. We also did find from the organizational perspective, lots of data, lots of insights about customers, didn't know what to do with it for the most part, or weren't using it effectively. And guess what? When a customer was happy, had a great experience, they actually bought more. Lo and behold. And what we find is that human resources or human capital tends to follow the CX experience. So we've been talking about this for years. Employees expect consumer-like experiences. Well, you know what? They really do. And they are, they're making decisions based on those experiences. So did a similar study. We interviewed HR practitioners and leaders. We also interviewed employees, and those are some of the insights we're going to give you today, is what did we hear in the survey and what does it mean? How could you change? How could you transform because of that? I'd say the only two real differences we heard from employees is, number one, self-service is okay. We've been doing self-service in the HR industry for 30 years, maybe more. And we're good at it. We're good at transactions. And of course, when it comes to happy experiences, we don't buy more as employees, but we're more loyal. We are retained within our organization. So there is definitely a factor of good experiences do lead to great outcomes as employees. So what we're going to do today, a couple of things. We're going to talk about what we need to do to truly drive consumer-like experiences. We've been talking about it again for years. How do we connect with employees? How do we engage them? How do we make them feel valued? So that's the main purpose today. And how do we do that using live interactions, but also using digital? The world is becoming digital. We need to respect that. We also need to leverage it. The technologies are there. How do we do it? So we're going to talk about that today. I've got some incredible speakers with me today. I've got Jason Averbook. I'm sure most of you have heard of Jason if you've ever been to a conference, if you've been on LinkedIn. Jason and I have actually known each other for many years, so I love leveraging him and his knowledge on these panels. He's a senior partner, global leader of digital HR strategy with Mercer Lead Gen. I've got Priyanka Mitra, Priyanka and I have also worked together for years. She's incredible talent in the HR space and research. She's an analyst with Everest, and also she leads the advisory practice. Shannon Battaglia, I've worked with Shannon for years. I guess I've been around for a little while. Shannon is our global leader at Conduent for our HRO and our learning solutions, also an incredible expert. Shannon can bring perspectives on what our company is actually doing today. She's on the ground with so many of our customers globally and really does understand the kinds of things that are working and not, and can definitely share lessons learned and best practices. And again, I'm Bonnie Tishman. You've been in the industry for many years, been with Conduent for more than 10. And again, the purpose here is to bring all different insights and perspectives to our panel today. Just a little bit about Conduent. Why is this interesting to us? For those of you who haven't heard of us, essentially we do 3 key things. We enhance customer experiences, we help organizations empower their people, and we help organizations with their back office operations. Again, this is why this topic is so compelling to us. All right, so this is about you now. As we tailor this conversation for our participants today, what we'd like to do is understand what's top of mind for you. So as we talk about experiences, we're also putting that in the frame of what are you thinking about? What's keeping you up at night? You know, as you plan for 2024, you know, what are the kinds of HR challenges that you're trying to address? So we have a poll. I'm going to ask you to pick, you know, of all of these choices, pick as many as you think are relevant. As you prepare, is it attracting talent? Is it retaining talent? Sourcing and building the right skills, whether it's internal or external? The multi-generational workforce, how is that impacting you, et cetera? So just take a minute. A couple of you have started to answer the poll. I will say from last year we started to really enter into the economic uncertainty. We were starting to worry about, are we going to be in a recession or not? We started to talk, I know, Jason, you hate this, but we were talking about quiet quitting. We were talking about how people were leaving jobs. The job market was still great, and voluntary attrition was higher than it has ever been. And so talent was so top of mind as we looked
Bonnie?
at last year. Yes.
Everyone in the chat saying they can't select more than one. So pick your favorite.
Oh,
pick your favorite.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, you know,
thank you.
Part of the modernization of these things is how do you modernize interaction like this? So everyone just pick your favorite, or the one that's most impactful that you're going to focus on in 2024.
Thank you. And on the following polls, if I tell you select as many as you can, pick your favorite first, because you might not be able to pick the others. Apologies, gang. All right, I'm going to give this 5 more seconds because I see people, now that they know the rules, are starting to put a few more in.
Shannon, do you want to guess? Do you want to guess which one do you think will be the leading?
Ooh, I mean, we were talking about talent, but I guess I could say maybe retaining talent, right? I mean, it's a big item for me in my space.
How about you, Priyanka?
I think managing costs is gonna be a priority this year, right now, and I think followed by the HR ecosystem, right? Just the fact that we have so many platforms available today.
How about you, Bonnie?
I am going with retaining talent.
I'm going with sourcing and building the right mix of skills. So who wins the coffee?
All right, I'm going for it. All right, I'm going.
Let's see.
Ooh. Ooh.
Flexible workforce. That's a surprise.
Any reaction from the team? Oops, sorry, what happened? Did I get out of it? No, there we are. Any reaction, gang, from what you're seeing?
I mean,
any surprises?
Yeah, Jason wins.
Jason wins.
Oh, sorry, it was that Shannon.
No, retaining talent.
Retaining talent.
But I do think it's a good mix, right? I mean, a lot of these are very, very key and top of mind. So I don't necessarily know if there's a wrong answer. It's just each individual company and perspective that you're bringing to the table.
What do you think about perspectives on managing costs?
Yeah, I think it's top of mind. It's going to be top of mind. We are still in that era where maybe the talent shortage is decreasing, but the skill shortage is still very, very large. So that's why, having the right mix of skill or right mix of people who have the right skills is going to be more important. And how do you do that in a way that's, cost effective? I think at the end of the day, that is going to be priority.
Well, what I will tell you in terms of top of mind, this is very similar to last year, although attracting talent was top. Just so that you know, and managing costs was actually not at the bottom, it was still high, but talent was so top of mind for everyone, and it seems like it still is. So we're struggling as a community. So boy, we better make sure we're delivering good experiences if we want to keep talent, if we want to grow talent, if we want to make sure that they're growing. And so let's go in and let's dive in. So one of the questions, or two of the questions that we asked in our study, it was again called Humanizing HR. And by the way, we did partner with Mercer LeapGen on this particular study. So they did it with Conduent. Two things that we found from employees is that 73% of them believed that if they had good interactions, positive interactions with HR, it impacted their feeling of loyalty. That's pretty high. And 70% said that their experiences with HR impacted how they felt about the company in general. So think about, employees, they go out there on Glassdoor, they go out there on Twitter when they have bad experiences, right? So, so good experiences can also go viral. Really important that we do figure out how to make sure that it's more consistent and that we are driving great reputation, great culture, loyalty. So I'm going to start the discussion with our panelists now. And Jason, I'm going to start with you because I know you forever. And sorry, it's been a long time, Jason. Jason and I worked together at Ceridian before Y2K. I know you're going to say, does everyone even know what Y2K is? But we were working on self-service modules then. We were working on trying to deliver good processes then. Why are we still struggling with this, Jason? It's 25 years later. What does HR need to do to reimagine, to finally drive that change and drive that ultimate employee experience?
Yeah, Bonnie, it's a great question. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask people in the comments, just in the chat, please type in, because Bonnie's not even really giving credit to how old we are. We actually started with the DOS world, the DOS mainframe world. So if you just put in the chat, yes or no, if you remember DOS, that would be a great way to start the conversation. But one of the biggest reasons that we're struggling when it comes to experience is that what we've been doing for generations and generations of technology advancement is the same thing. So we've gone from mainframe to DOS to Windows to client server to web to Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 to, believe it or not, I saw someone who actually marketed themselves as Web 4.0 in Paris earlier this week. And I was like, wow, Web 4.0, never heard of it, but they said they were Web 4.0 certified. Now, the funny thing about all of that to me, first of all, there is no Web 4.0 certification, so just keep that in mind. But the other thing is that we, as much as we've gone from new technology, we're still doing the same thing. We're intentionally designing HR technology for who? HR. So if I'm designing HR technology for HR, guess what? Getting employees, managers, and leaders to use them isn't necessarily going to happen. Samantha, thanks for putting your LinkedIn in there. Now we're all going to connect with you as a Cheesehead Packer fan, which I'm not, by the way, as a Viking fan. But the thing that I will say tied to that is that what's happened over time is that we have to start to think about how do we shift our mindset from getting people connected? Because that was the goal back in the day, was just getting people connected. And if they could get on the modem and go, all those weird noises that modems made to get us connected, that was the win. The goal is now shifting from getting people connected to building connection. And I can't just build connection with bare naked transactions. Okay, a transaction where I put in my information and say, okay, and it says saved, makes no one feel great. That's like ordering an Uber or Lyft and saying, click, and then we don't know if it's ever going to show up. Like, what would we do? We wouldn't use that service. We'd abandon. That's like ordering a pizza and not knowing if it's ever going to come. You know what I mean? So all of those things being said, we have to start to think about not processes, but which generate data, but we have to think about journeys that generate feeling. Does that make sense? We have to think about journeys that generate feeling. Processes generate data, journeys generate feeling. The last thing I'll just say on this topic, because I want to make sure that our other panelists chime in, is that employee experience has to work and run east-west, not north-south. So the way we work in HR oftentimes is in silos, where we have COEs that all work north-south. They own strategy, policy, and delivery. Okay, but if every COE owns delivery, guess what? How's it going to feel to an employee? Choppy, disconnected, multiple brands, multiple colors, multiple ways of communicating, et cetera, et cetera. That's never going to feel like an experience. So, Bonnie, in summary, what I'm going to say is take the pressure off the technology. Put the pressure on you to design the ultimate experience that you want for your persona of workforce.
Hey, and Jason, I want you to know that most people heard of DOS and remembered it.
Those were the days we didn't have to look up to do data entry. Yes, exactly.
Right. So Jason, you make an incredible point. Priyanka, you have so much experience working with providers in the industry, working with clients in the industry. What are you seeing? I mean, can HR do it alone? How do you react to what Jason just shared with us?
I think Jason made some incredible points, right? It's difficult to follow up to Jason, but I'd like to double down on what Jason ended with, that we are looking at technology as an end-all solution. And when we think about adopting technology, we think of it as replacement of people. But at the end of the day, it should not be about how are you replacing people? How are you bringing in self-service without building that experience? So whenever you're developing those experiences and journeys, think of it from a partnership perspective. How do you make sure that people and technology partner to bring about the experience that you want? And this is where, having experienced leaders having a seat at the table is going to make a huge difference, so that they can bring both the experience element and the technology element and make sure that it's a strategic priority rather than just saying that, oh, it's HR, it's delivery. We can just bring about a Workday or a success factor and make that happen. To make that happen, I think it's important that or organizations work with the right partners, because it's going to be important that you learn from your partners, right? There is so much collective knowledge present in the HR community. There are so many things happening at the same time. So partnering with the right provider or the right vendor can actually provide a lot of access to best practices, learnings, can help organizations chalk out the actual moments that matter, that are relevant and contextual to the industry and the organization that they want to build. So it's very important that they make sure that they utilize this collective information and collective knowledge that's out there and choose the partners very carefully, be it a service provider or be it a tech provider. So it's not going to be HR's job alone. It's going to be, and it has to be ecosystem, has to have partners who are providing the tech, providing the expertise, and providing the knowledge. I think that's going to be very important.
I completely agree with you, Priyanka. I mean, the collective knowledge that we can gain from each other when we're all sitting around the table brainstorming what we can accomplish for a particular client is tremendous. So I don't like to tag on, but I couldn't help it because I'm definitely passionate about the folks, coming together and really sharing those learnings.
Well, and the other thing I would say to even add on to you, Shannon, is that I agree with Jason. We have to do that last bullet, human-centered design. We have to understand how do we weave in those critical moments of employees. How are they feeling about the experiences, right? But for us, especially, we live it every day. Processes are still important too, because that's going to close loop it, right? That's going to make sure you do get that pizza and the car does show up when you order it. So the two have to be combined. And the thing is, I think most companies haven't quite adopted human-centered design yet to bring in that human element. So, so again, I'll tag on to Shannon's, there's lots of partners out there that can help you bring the two together because it's so much more complicated than it was in the past. All right, I'm going to move on to a little bit more about employees, what they're saying, because again, this is about creating the right environment to make sure that employees are happy. Okay, so we asked employees, how do they define excellence, EX, excellence? We ask them, where do they typically interact with their HR function? And we ask them, like, what do you think of if you compare? So again, I compared before a CX experience with an EX experience. We asked employees to compare HR experiences with personal relationships. How do they view them? So in terms of EX excellence, they want to feel special and valued. They want consistency, personalized experiences, and they truly want them to be enjoyable, number one. We still see more one-to-one interactions, and most of them are still live voice. That could be because HR is not providing the digital means, potentially, or perhaps those digital means are not answering that inquiry, solving that problem. Not quite sure. I'm going to let our panelists talk a little bit more there. But even when it's not voice, it's still one-to-one email, one-to-one chat, as opposed to going into a digital ecosystem. And then unbelievably, not unbelievably, but so strongly, they feel that their interactions with HR are very personal. They compare it to personal relationships, even friendly relationships. They don't expect it to be, kind of a blind business transaction. They do expect to be engaged. So how do we do this? How do we make interactions personalized, enjoyable? How do we move them to be something that we drive new experiences? How do we create a culture is really what I'm trying to get at. And I'm going to start with you, Shannon.
Sure.
Because I know in our environment, and Shannon and I have done this for years. I know Jason in his past life did as well. But when we thought about interactions, from the beginning of time, we thought about, do we put it in the contact center, with our live employee service representatives, because they're high volume and they're complex, and they're going to take more time, personalized attention. Do we do that? And then the ones that are more high volume and simple, do we just throw them to like a self-service tool or some kind of a, IVR? We're talking now with this new emotional component. How do we change that? Because that two-dimensional world doesn't work anymore. So Shannon, from your experience, what are you seeing? How do we drive a new culture?
Yeah, and look, we know HR is complex, right? And the outcomes of a positive employee experience in light of that complexity, and definitely the volumes that we're seeing in, some of the transactional work that we do with a combination of tools, the people, and the processes, right? You got to make sure that you are, and I loved what was said earlier about, journeys generating feeling, right? That in all of these types of transactions and work that we're doing, from being a new hire to getting promoted to going on a leave of absence, having a baby, all of these things generate feelings. And depending on what they are, there's different types of feelings. So, kind of going back to, one of the things we talked about earlier too about, making sure that we are utilizing kind of all of those, tools, processes, to fit the needs of whatever might be happening. We sometimes, and I'll give an example of, we had a group of folks that we were trying to onboard in a very high volume type of situation. And we had to take it one step further and get creative. We had to bring the people component into it and that engagement. So as we were staffing for this large volume of hires to make sure we could be ready for various go lives for our clients, we struggle with our first day show rate in some of our global centers, right? We get them through the process, we get them ready to join, but then on that first day, they don't show up. So, we kind of got together, put our heads together. What could we do to really kind of generate some energy before we start? And I'll tell you, we had a brilliant new program where we did these virtual meet and greets the day before they were supposed to start, to just, hey, get to know you. Here's your group of folks that you're starting with. Here are the folks you're going to be into training. And I will tell you, the success was phenomenal. We had 100% first day show rate over those 2 months, just because of that. Didn't take a lot of time, didn't take a lot of energy, but we were really able to, showcase, getting people engaged and on board. So doing things like that, I think we have to be a little bit of creative with the processes that you have and the tools that you have in order to make a difference, I think is very important.
And I love that story, Shannon, because oftentimes onboarding goes in that high volume, transactional, not emotional. And to me, that's one of the most emotional experiences you could possibly have, starting a new job, right? And we sometimes forget that. So that's the perfect story to bring that to life. And Jason, I'm going to go to you next, because I love working with Mercer Leapgen on some of the models that you create. And one of the ones that I love that you've put together is all about thinking about transactions in terms of hands, hearts, and heads. I said it the wrong order, but that the hearts is the part that people have been missing. So, I mean, as you think about the experience culture, you've already talked about, the human centricity of it. What else should companies be thinking about, or our participants today, to drive this culture? What else, what else
so
go ahead.
I'm going to try to give like 4 or 5 just key things, but make them quick. Okay. The first thing is that to deal with unlearning. A lot of us have been doing this for a long time, and we have to unlearn a lot of what we've done, okay, in order to meet the employee where they are. In order to unlearn and meet the employee where we are, we have to actually think about meeting the employee and thinking of the employee as an empty chair. So think about the empty chair in your office and say, hey, Mr. or Miss Employee, is this going to make sense to you? Does that make sense? Is this going to make sense to you? So if, for example, in order for you to find what you're looking for on the intranet, once you find out you're pregnant, you're going to type in, I'm having a dependent. Priyanka's laughing. No employee is going to say that ever. I'm having a dependent. Okay? Like, they're going to say, I'm having a baby. So why do people get frustrated? Because we make them speak HR terms. No employee is ever going to say, the effective date that I'm moving is X. They're going to say the date that I'm moving is X. What that means to y'all, I don't know, but here's the date that I'm moving. Okay, so it's really important that we then speak the language and design for them. Okay, so no employee ever say, I can't wait, I'm having a dependent. It's not going to happen. Okay, the third component of this is to understand that most, and you brought it up earlier, Bonnie, about chatbots. Unfortunately, most chatbots are either creepy, or they're crappy, or they're clunky. 3 C's.
Oh, I like the 3 C's.
Okay. And because of that, what people do is they abandon. Okay. Now, most of that is because it's because of the technology that we're using, which is not generative AI. It's old school rules matching AI. So that means I have one shot. Okay. Generative AI is multi-shot. Single shot AI is how most chatbots work. So if I don't type it exactly with what I'm trying to say, guess what? sorry, I can't help you. That's going to go away as we all infuse generative AI into our experience design in 2024, which is a key component of that. And then the last thing I'm just going to say is that we oftentimes take a go live approach to employee experience instead of a go begin approach. Okay. And what I say that is, and what I mean by that is we don't just stand up a new employee experience, go live, and then we're done. Okay. Because you should be constantly thinking about, how am I going to get feedback? How am I going to put in place continuous improvement? If 92 people today can't find what they're looking for, guess what? I should fix it today, not in the next release. Okay? Because what we struggle with is we struggle with the fact that people will abandon if it doesn't work for them, and then we can't get them back. Okay? So all of that together, Bonnie, if we tie together designing for the human, the empty chair, not HR, thinking about how do I do it in a conversational way, not a one-shot way, and then finally thinking about how do I focus on go begin, continuous improvement, not just go live, that's going to change the value and the relationship that employees have with these experiences going forward.
Yeah, that go begin, I hope everyone wrote that down, because we have helped companies, and Prank, I'm going to turn to you in just a second, but and even we were just several of us were at HR Tech a couple of weeks ago, and you know, people say, oh, I can't stand this particular vendor, it doesn't work. And it's not the technology, you've only implemented 10% of the features. That's the problem. And then you think you're done. There needs to be a longer term plan. You might go live with a set of features, but I agree on that one. That's such a powerful message, Jason. And I see you nodding, Priyanka. What would you like to add?
No, I just, I've never heard it put it this way, like go begin, which is, I think, a powerful way of putting it. Oftentimes we have seen that people think that just bringing in technology is going to solve a lot of problems, but we are not working on a continuous loop of feedback and iteration. Experiences are changing, people are changing, generations are changing. So it's no longer just about bringing a solution in or figuring out how people and technology are going to work together today, but it's an iterative process as things change, as technology evolves. And I think Jason brought a very important point about meeting people or meeting employees where they are at, instead of designing for HR, which is a fallacy that many organizations fall to.
Agreed completely. All right. Audience, you ready for a poll?
Yeah, I can see the audience agrees that unlearning is very important.
Unlearning, yes.
Yep.
Hey, Penny, or Bonnie, really quickly, I want to, if you don't mind, I want to respond to Penny's comment.
No, go. Yeah.
One of the things, you guys, that's really important. So Penny said, I'll just read it to everyone in case you haven't said, unlearning needs to happen with our employees as well. Building the expectation that go begin means we'll continue to change and develop, not here's the solution, live with it. Now, Penny, I just want to, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'll jump in, just like, it'll take me 30 seconds. So Penny, there's two things I want to talk about. First of all, we have to always realize, no matter what we're doing in this experience world, it's 2023 outside of work. We have to ask ourselves, what year does it feel like inside of work? Okay? Because the expectation, our employees don't need to unlearn, by the way. They're already learning. They're already unlearning every single day outside of work as far as how they have to do things. There are still people like the person I was behind last night trying to use self-service checkout at the grocery store who didn't get a QRG, quote unquote, quick reference guide as to how to use it that I was laughing about, that they didn't know how to use it. But for the most part, we're learning because it's 2023 outside of work. But at the same time, Penny, the other thing I want to tie back to your message is we have to switch our mindset. We have to switch our mindset from minimum viable product to minimum lovable product. Okay? Because if you put a minimum viable product in front of an employee, if you put a minimum viable product in front of an employee and that employee can't use it, they're going to abandon and not come back. Okay, so minimum lovable versus minimum viable.
And go back to the data we've learned, 70% of them believe that experience is going to impact how they feel about the company. So HR equals the company, the face of the company. So really important point. Thank you for addressing Penny's comment. That was awesome. Okay. All right, we've got a poll. Is everyone ready? So we just talked about an experience culture. What we're asking for here, you should be able to click all that apply, but if you can't, start with the one you want first. But we just talked about the fact that we need to digitize a little bit more as well, right? There's still, we need to be able to bring the human element into our interactions. So what are you thinking about in terms of new technologies, new approaches? Are you thinking about hyper-personalization and using analytics? Are you thinking about human-centered design and journeys, automation in the back end, RPA, consolidating data so you can use it for insights? So we'll give you a couple of minutes here. Well, a couple of seconds, not really a couple of minutes. All right, panelists, what do you think what do you think the top choice is?
I think from, when I'm interacting with clients, I'm seeing the C and the D, right? They want some improved insights in combination with automation. That's what I'm hearing from them mostly. And taking it a step further too, with regard to the insights, I in fact had a client tell me today that they want us to give them, this is the ridiculous list, right? What are you seeing that we are doing that's just ridiculous in comparison to either best practice or other clients? So I wrote that down when she was talking, because that's a great point. People want to see those types of insights because we're dealing with it day to day, and sometimes they can't step back and see the forest through the trees, if you will. So
you think they're still trying to build the foundation?
In some cases, yeah, especially when I'm thinking about my global teams, when we're truly global, to standardize as much as you can, without those, with the various nuances that we have in some per country situations.
All right. Oh, wait, a couple more still.
Hey, Bonnie, can I guess?
You can, because I was just giving them another minute. Yes, please, Jason.
I'm going to guess that automation to improve transactional speed and quality is going to win, but human-centric workforce journeys should win. You actually can't do 3 without 2. Unfortunately, a lot of people do the automation, but they do it to improve speed and quality, but in a bad way where no one uses it, and then it doesn't work. So if you don't actually do the journey part before you do the automation part, the automation doesn't work. And then all of a sudden you've designed something that's not tied to feeling. You've designed something that's for you in HR to improve speed and quality, but it's not for the workforce. But I can't wait to see the results.
No, I'm
ready.
Very much agree with you. Priyanka,
Yeah.
do you want to guess, or do you want me to go?
I can take a quick guess. I think it's going to be data. But as Jason said, right, people might look at automation first because, again, it's from an HR perspective. But I think data is going to take the cake.
All
I
right.
think we'll influence the voting now, Bonnie. We should just show the results.
There were only a couple came in afterwards. All right, what do we have? Ooh, people are listening about the journeys. I'm excited.
Bonnie, can you read the results? Good or bad? I can't see them.
You can't see them. Okay, so analytics, AI, 27%, human-centric journeys, 54%, automation, 43%, data consolidation, 36%, and improved employee feedback loops, sentiment analysis, 52%. So human-centric is first, employee feedback loop, sentiment analysis was second.
That just made my whole year, so I'm done. I'm leaving. No,
And
seriously,
automation was
that.
third.
Yeah, I love that.
I do too. People are listening. This is amazing. Maybe they just learned something. Even better. All right, we're gonna continue to apply this. I'm moving on to the next question and to the next data site insights. All right, so when we did interview HR organizations, we found that HR, as I said earlier, they're very effective at self-service. We've been doing this forever. You can change your address. You can have a baby. You may not get all the results you need from having your baby, but you can have a baby, you can change, you can add a dependent, etc. But where do most organizations feel that they are still not very effective? The digital hyper-personalization, human-centric journeys, just the ability to be agile. How do I shift quickly as the organization is shifting? And some of that relates to skills, as you were saying earlier, Priyanka. And then the transactional speed and quality, so automation in the back end. So we did find that this is where companies are struggling. So great to hear that people are starting to recognize each of these and that they're starting to put plans into place. So as we think about, again, where do we go? So we know what our gaps are. We know where we need to go. We're thinking about what we're going to do for 2024. But when we create a roadmap, it's got to be more than just thinking 1 year at a time. Priyanka, you are out there every day, with data, insights, providers. What are you seeing in terms of the major changes around experience? What are you seeing, like either it's features, technologies, or even just approaches? Are companies starting to work more with partners, et cetera? Are they changing their ecosystem? What insights can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we spoke about employee journeys, right? So it's all about hyper personalization, not even personalization, hyper personalization. So making sure that you know everything, all the history about the employee and respond to the employee in that way. And to bring about that, you would need a lot many things to happen. You would need data. You would need clean data, not just the data that you have, but what is the form of the data, what is the data hygiene, how are you leveraging data today versus how do you intend to use the data? As I think Shannon put it very, very nicely, that, okay, show me ridiculous insights. What's ridiculous in my organization? People are looking for those kind of insights. I think AI is going to be a game changer. I know it was not very high on the priority, but Jason kind of alluded to it when he was talking about generative AI. It's not going to be a novelty anymore. Everybody's talking about it. Organizations are certainly curious about it. And most providers are trying to find a way in which they can bring AI into how they deliver HR services. So it's not going to be a novelty. It's actually going to be a very important part in terms of being able to deliver that personalized experience, deliver that good employee journey. I think for HR leaders, I think it's a good opportunity to look at what they have today. They have a gold mine in terms of data, but they need to make sure that they utilize that data to understand where can they bring technology. How do you make sure that when you have a chatbot, which is creepy, the handoff happens before the interaction becomes creepy? When do you need to have a live agent step in versus when you have technology take it through and through, right? Again, using that data to understand where the hand and the heart and there was another edge, right? How do you make sure that you utilize data to bring about that right mix of emotion, experience, and efficiency? So net, we are seeing maximum investment in terms of utilizing data, followed by AI. Automation is always there, right? There is always the race towards bringing in much more efficiency, revisiting processes, redesigning processes so that you can bring in automation. So I think net, in terms of new tech, AI is going to be center stage. Speaking of data, though, I mean, you spoke about skills, and I think skills is going to be very important. We are already talking about skills. We spoke about how retaining talent is a top priority. So how do you utilize that data to talk about skills, and not only for your talent management practices, but also for other HR priorities like wellness. Where do you think you need the right wellness intervention? How do you make sure that you use skills data, employee data to bring in the right diversity pieces in the organization? So it's going to be very important. Skills, I think skills technology and overall skills as a theme is going to take center stage as well.
Thank you, Priyanka. Shannon, you've worked with many clients on just their journeys. Again, just any even tips, lessons learned, what would you like to share? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I saw the feedback from somebody that I were having a hard time hearing because they weren't on mute. So, but yeah, so the thing that I'm seeing is kind of a combination of a lot of different things that we've talked about. But it's taking that data that Priyanka was discussing, right? Because they are a roadmap. I mean, they're a wealth of knowledge with that data. But then how does that tie back to how can we improve the go begin, right? Because clients aren't thinking about it as a go begin, but and I really like that term. So Jason, I'm probably going to be using it a lot more frequently. But I think that then the clients, taking that understanding and determining how can we use the technology that they have, because you're right, they're only using 10% of it. But a combination of taking that data that you have, getting the insights, and determining what additional features do they want to see in their applications to help on that whole entire journey for the employee, right? I mean, I think that's the key and the crux of what's going to be happening, at least in my space with my company over the next 12 to 24 months.
Thanks, Shannon. Jason, anything you would add to this one?
Oh,
you're
he's
also
on mute too.
That's okay.
I know from an interest of time, we just want to get on to the next thing, but
okay.
I just want to, just really quickly, Bonnie, you've said 3 times, and I love the fact that you've said 3 times that we've been successful at self-service. Like, I think it's really key that organizations, before they start any initiative, set up what are your measures of success going to be.
Right.
Okay. Because I think that that's a vendor perspective that we're very successful with self-service. I can't tell you that that's a customer perspective always. We have a lot of customers that say, we've taken our tools, we've put them on the link farm intranet, and no one knows where to find them. So I think we've been successful as vendors creating tools. I think we've been successful as in organizations in helping them understand that these modules are things that we should use. But I really think that the measures of success are important. And are they impacting employee experience? Because back to the hands, heads, and hearts work. If self-service is working, I should not be doing hands work. Okay, which means my business partners, when I do activity-based studies, which we do a lot of, they shouldn't be doing hands work. But if you ask them, they say they feel more like HR transaction partners than business partners. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear when they set their vision and why are they doing things, that they say, how will we measure success? It's not just about adoption. It's not just about going live with the module. It's about what's the impact on work.
Thank you, Jason. All right, I'm moving on. Another poll. So again, participants, you should be able to list multiple choices here, but what are you planning over the next 12 to 18 months to enhance the quality of your digital interactions? Nothing planned? Are you going to continue to train your live agents? Are you going to enrich your knowledge bases, leverage some generative AI, leverage a lot of generative AI? What are you going to be doing? Okay, we'll give that a second. So again, I'm going to start with you, Jason. What do you think?
I truly think that these are really tough questions. I'm going to say it's not going to be F. How's that? I'm going to say it's not going to be B. So instead of saying what it's going to be, I think it's going to be a combination of C, D, and E.
Okay. There might be some ties in there. How about you, Priyanka?
I agree with Jason on this one. I don't think people will add more technology. Maybe a little bit of cloud, but I think it's going to be CDNE.
Shannon?
Yeah, I know this is a tough one. Well, I'm pretty sure it's not A, because everybody here is speaking about how they want to improve. But I would go with Jason and Priyanka on this. It's going to be some sort of combination here.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give it another second or two. I know this one's a harder question, but like you said, everyone's here because they are opening up their thinking as they're planning for next year. And Jason, I do have to correct you on one thing while we're waiting one more second. With the self-service, that was HR practice. It was from our study. So HR practitioners did believe that they were good. That was, I shouldn't say good at it, but that's what they were the best at out of the choices. So maybe it's not good, but it's still more effective than they are at any of these other capabilities, if that's fair.
Totally.
But you're right from the vendor perspective, for sure. All right, I'm going to give this, because we're starting to run out of time. I'm going to count down. We'll do the drum roll, and we will go to the answers. Oh, I think you all were right again. All right, so a few people don't have anything planned. There were just a few there. It looks like the highest was actually modernizing their HR ecosystem. Some more cloud, more advanced applications, collaboration tools. That was 47.4%, almost 41% with enhancing their knowledge bases. 31, almost 32% training their agents. And 23% leveraging some generative AI. So we do see people still focused on the core, I would say, some foundational elements before you can get to that next level. So getting to that next level, Jason, I'm going to turn back to you because you started talking about outcomes. When we asked what HR was good at, we also asked what their biggest gaps were. And so again, we're seeing this in some of the answers. Scalable cloud technology, there's still room for growth, being able to consolidate data and human-centric journeys. But we also found they're not great, and data was there. So Priyanka, I know you've mentioned that as well, but they're having trouble with measurement. So whether it's for decision-making or to tie it back to those loyalty indicators, because we saw that's a problem, right? Or it could be a good thing. We see that good experiences drive loyalty. So you started talking about outcomes. Could you give any ideas, guidance as we think about how do you measure success of an experience? I'll call it an engagement project, new culture. Like how do we move forward? Because we're not measuring the right things today, as you said.
I want to be really careful from a time standpoint, so I'm going to go quick. The first thing is the definition of experience. So service is doing something for someone. Experience is how it feels to take part in something.
Right.
So if we have service level agreements versus experience level agreements, that's going to create some interesting discussions. If we have service agents versus experience agents, that's going to create an interesting discussion. Service centers versus experience centers, that's going to create an interesting discussion. So a lot of it is brand. What are we doing? The second component is how do I actually measure experience? And it's not the number of transactions I do. It's how people feel about the interaction that they've had. Okay. And then the last thing I'll just say is, where's the market headed for business insights, decision support? It's headed for real time. So anyone that's doing experience work, don't send out a quarterly or yearly survey asking about the experience. Okay? Because people aren't going to remember. it has to be at the time of the feeling. It has to be at the time of the experience. Okay, you've all left the restroom and seen those goofy things where people push the happy face or the sad face. You know, they're trying to capture it right there. Okay, that's why that's there. So those are the three things I would say, Bonnie.
Priyanka, anything that you would add here?
I think Jason summed it well. If I were to just add one, I would say close the feedback loop, right? We have seen people capture so much feedback, but we have not necessarily seen action on that feedback. And what Jason mentioned about point in time capturing of experience, it's very important because anecdotally I can speak about Big Bang that was trying to understand how training can be improved. What they did was they worked with their partner to identify what would be those critical touch points in which they need to collect feedback, and they got that feedback and actually worked on it, and then they could draw the line between, yes, people who have successfully graduated from this program have actually been able to provide better customer NPS. If you do not work on that feedback, if you don't close that loop, measurement, just measuring it is not going to bring any impact. So just make sure to close that loop as well. Continue to capture that data and make sure that you close that loop. Make it iterative. Jason also mentioned it's a continuous improvement process. It's about beginning, and it's not just about going live.
All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to go to two questions that were in the Q&A. One of them is fantastic because we all need to be thinking about this, but if we're going to become experience managers, maybe that becomes a role, because experience is clearly a thing. It's not just a concept. It's clearly something we need to focus on. What skills do we need to be looking for in HR to be able to accomplish this? Jason, do you want to go first on this one?
So just real quick, design, intentional design, the understanding of creation of personas, which is part of that, which is understanding people, and then getting away from just doing technology architecture and thinking about experience architecture. Technology architecture is how systems connect. Experience architecture is how people interact with systems.
And I think that goes to one of the points we were trying to also bring up as we did the polls is you need to, what are the things you're going to do to become more of a human ecosystem, human-centric, as opposed to just technical. So thank you for that one. I think you just wrote the job description for them. Any other adds to that one? Priyanka or Shannon? You think Jason covered it?
I think Jason summed it really well. Nothing to add there.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. One of the other questions was if we could take 10 seconds, Jason. Someone just wanted you to explain again, what do you mean by go begin?
Go begin is simply continuous improvement. So in the world that we live in the HR technology space, oftentimes we put something in, then we move on to the next thing. Go begin is basically we're just getting to the finish line. Or excuse me, we're just getting to the starting line. Now let's begin. You know, the goal isn't to get to the starting line. And then I know we have parties, go live parties and all that stuff, and that's all cool. But let's have our go live party, but really call it a go begin party. And then making sure that it's just the start of our journey. It's not the end of our journey. Okay. And that's just the mindset that's required in a continuous improvement, agile world that we live today. Generative AI is going to make this even more apparent. If I go live and never pay attention to what happens with generative AI after I go live, we're going to have massive messes on our hands. So, that mindset is really, really important. Thank you for the nice comments, everyone, as we wrap.
Yes, thank you. Well, I know we're 1 minute over. Anything else? Any closing comments from anyone? Fantastic job. You covered all of the content I had for you. So I just wanted to say thank you. I don't see anything else in the Q&A, so I think we're good to close. So Amberly, our producer, if you would come back with closing comments.
Priyanka and Shannon and Bonnie, thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Agreed.
Thank you so much.
Amberly, go ahead. There you are.
Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. You may disconnect and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.